Hello there, Brendan and the SLT at Northfield Primary School. My name is Tara Ellie and I am the creative lead and the principal trainer at Pivotal Education. Thank you very much for letting me have a look at your behaviour policy. I've got it here on the screen, so I'm looking at that while I'm talking to you. I'd like to take some time to go through the things on your policy that work really well, of which there are many, and I'd like to make some points about areas you might think about changing and consider for development. Okay, so what I would like to point out first is other things I think work really well. So there, you have a lovely opening in this behaviour policy. You know, we go straight in with some lovely language about how you want people to feel valued, respected, treated well and fairly. And what I love about that is that this is extended to everybody in the college, in your school, excuse me. So it's about students and teachers. It's not discreetly about students or teachers. It's very much community wide, which is exactly the voice we want. We want the same feelings and sentiment for everybody in the school community. And I think this is really reinforced by your aims of the policy too. You have the same really positive language about how you're going to achieve the right culture, ostensibly, in your school, which is brilliant. The second point I'd like to mention that I found really encouraging was the mention of encouraging good behaviour and praising good behaviour and attitudes. And I love the use of this word attitudes. I think, you know, you've expressed an excellent understanding of the necessary culture for promoting good behaviour in your policy, particularly on that first page. You know, it's encouragement and praise, and you say really specifically rather than criticism and overuse of sanctions. And I think that's a really valid point, is that throwing heavier sanctions at those students who need our help the most is not a successful behaviour management process. It really just doesn't really support those learners or the teachers in any way. So, but again, lovely, clear opening about your intentions, and a really good understanding of behaviour management is articulated, I think, in that opening. The final thing I would like to mention that I think works really well is that you've got many, many great ideas for praise and reward systems. And I particularly like your use of triangulated praise. So that's the ones where it's about the teacher, the student, and the parent. They're the ones I think that are most effective, and actually the ones that students really, really appreciate. So they're not monetary, but that postcard home, the phone call home. I see you've got a text. We'd probably go a phone call over a text, but I know that takes time. However, it's the voice on the end of the phone that can really make the difference. And you also use encourage lots of praise, and they are the top three things we know from research at Pivotal that our learners really want, and they all feature in there. And yes, you have other things, you know, your Pizza Express and all of those other things that we know that young people really enjoy. But actually, those moments of triangulated praise really do send out the right message between you and the parent, and of course to the wider community. So that's fantastic. So there's lots of positive things there, which I really enjoyed seeing. Okay, let's go on to some areas you might consider for development. I've made a little list here. I've looked at the number of rules that you have in the policy, and I came up with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So I've got about 15 rules, and some are general school rules and some are classroom rules. And so one of the first things I would look to doing for your school, if I were going to develop something in your policy, it would be to really make those rules more concise. Now at Pivotal we work with 3 rules, and even schools who work with 5 rules, when I go and ask their students what the rules are, they cannot remember. We want the rules to be memorable. I'm sure if you sat your students down your staff down right now and said, what are all of the rules, they might struggle too to remember them. And that just means that we're in a situation where if we can't remember the rules, how can we really expect our young people to? So let's really think about streamlining policy. Once we've got streamlined rules, those 3 rules, then what we've got is streamlined behaviour interventions. The language that we use around the school to pick up behaviour issues will be consistent. For example, a number of your rules would, to me, fit into respect. So be respectful would be a rule, and that would work with treat others with respect, speak to others as you'd like to be spoken to, that's being respectful, consider other people's point of view and feelings, that's being respectful, move around the school in a quiet and calm way, show respect, that's to be respectful. So we've got a number of things that come within the same rule, ostensibly. So what I would like to happen then is that whenever we have a behaviour rule that contravenes that, then what we can do is we say, I need you to be respectful when you move around the school. I need you to listen respectfully. Show me that you can be a respectful group worker in this activity. Can we be respectful when we play this game at lunchtime? So we've got a mantra that is using the language of our rules that every lunchtime supervisor, teacher, TA, site manager, office staff are using the same behaviour intervention. And that really means that we've got safe behaviour interventions happening. So how to streamline the rules is something we can really take you through further training. The next thing that I noticed on there that I would possibly suggest is your sanction system. So you use Good to be Green. I know that's been very popular, the Good to be Green. It's a slightly tricky tariff system, I find, it conflicts with our principles at Pivotal, mainly because we start on the green and then any way of moving is downwards. So it's about you're on green and then you can get worse, and it's very public. So that's 2 points. So I would say if a student does really well in my class, that's how you get celebrated. If you walk into my classroom and you saw a student's name on the board, say you saw Brendan's name on the board, Brendan, you would be on that board because you have done something over and above. And that's how you get the celebrity status of publicly having your name on my board. Now, Good to be Green flips that culture, unfortunately. So that's something that doesn't work with what we do at Pivotal. I would also suggest that there's too much emphasis on moving downwards. I want the emphasis on over and above students. It's the over and above behaviour. When it's the behaviour that contravenes our rules, our classroom agreement, then that is the business between Brendan and I. That student has made a mistake. That student is struggling with their behaviour, and I am going to make sure that they are aware that they are moving through the sanction steps, that they've had their warning, that they're on their second warning, that they're going to be moved on to timeout if they don't make the right decisions. Things will still happen, but in no way publicly. It's not going to be about humiliation. I'm not going to throw my relationship with that student on the ground every time he has a bump in the road, because those students who challenge us have many bumps in the road. And so I'm going to respectfully deal with his behaviour privately, not from the front of the room, and certainly not on anything that's a visual display. And the final point that I would like to raise is about the length of your document. Now, at 12... So am I right with 12? Let me make sure I've got this right. 12 pages. Yes, that's right. 12 pages. I actually think that's certainly not the longest behaviour policy I have ever read. So, however, I think for this to be a truly living document, and that's the expression I really want you to focus on, a living document, as in something that people are using all the time, even 12 pages is too long. So I would suggest you try to edit this into a sort of an A4 version where everything that is most important, you decide what are the most important things I need my staff and my students and my parents and governors to glean from this every day so they use it day to day. What do I need them to know? I need them to know what the rules are. I need them to know what the rewards are, and I need a simple step sanction system that they can access. And they will probably be the main things that need to be seen every day and used every day as reminders, as prompts, as support, as things that keep us safe and are concise. So really streamlining that policy. This policy that exists will still be there, I'm sure, for those high tariff behaviours, for those really tricky days when you need to kind of reach in and go, right, what do we do when we've reached this process? But that's usually only 5% of our students. So we don't need a policy that outweighs that. We need the day-to-day business of behaviour, relationship, culture, promoting all the wonderful things you said at the beginning. That's the stuff we need to see every day. So we are actively pursuing the behaviour we want to get more of. Okay. I'd like to just kind of run over the points that I've made in this video before we end. So many wonderful things, particularly in that opening of your policy about people being valued and respected, and that is really community wide, not just specifically aimed at teachers and not just specifically aimed at learners. It's everybody feeling valued and respected, which is a brilliant principle to have in a school. You also mentioned that we are praising good behaviour and attitudes, and I really like that fact that we're looking at attitudes as well, because there are some learning attitudes that need to be celebrated that aren't necessarily just behaviours. And the final one is I love the means of praise that you are promoting in your school, particularly those that are triangulated, and I'd really push those to the forefront: the praise, the phone call home, and the postcard home are the ones I'd really make sure that I was encouraging my staff to use as much as possible. They're timely, and their analogue effect of walking home with a postcard is wonderful. Okay, so the areas that I suggested for development, how to streamline those rules so that we have a really lovely, consistent and concise language that everybody in the school is using, and that language is going to form every single behaviour intervention, keeping your staff safe and keeping your students safe, moving us away from improvisation. The use of good to be green is something that I would completely remove and actually flip that culture on its head. Any public displays of names on boards are for those who go over and above. So we pursue that behaviour and we get more of that behaviour, because that is what we see is celebrated. Students who struggle with their behaviour, they are taken through the steps, but they are taken through the steps without an audience, privately and respectfully, with a word in the ear, so that they are coached to make the right decision rather than publicly humiliated. And my final point for you is about the length of the document, and really considering how you can create a streamlined version of what you've got, so that you know that it's being used all the time, that it's not something that just collects dust after it's been read at the beginning of the year, but it really is referred to, displayed in planners, a real true active living document that you can call your behaviour blueprint, as we call it. So any of the three things that I've mentioned, you can get support from us through training or some online training. We're happy to come in, because this is by no means the end of the learning conversation. Please do not hesitate to get in touch with us at the office, because we'd love to support you on your next steps. Good luck.